If I had known this back then, I could have saved my marriage, kept my confidence, and still felt like a man. That's what one of my patients, 72 years old, whispered to me after years of suffering in silence. And he's not alone. I've heard the same story over and over again from men in their 60s, 70s, even 80s. Good men, proud men, men who thought they were just getting old when in reality they were never told the truth. Truth that could have changed everything. My name is Dr. James Whitmore. I'm a physician specializing in men's health, and for over 30 years I've walked beside thousands of men through the most personal, painful, and powerful moments of their lives. And if there's one thing I've learned, it's this. Most men don't lose their sex lives because of age. They lose it because of ignorance. And that ignorance, it's not their fault. No one ever taught us what really matters. You've probably been told that sexual decline is just part of aging, that it's inevitable, that after 60 you should just accept it. But what if I told you that's not only wrong, it's dangerously misleading? The truth is, there are 4 simple but powerful secrets about your sexual health that could reignite your energy, restore your confidence, and transform the way you experience intimacy, even at 70 or beyond. And in just a moment, I'll walk you through all 4. But stay with me until the end, because I'll also reveal the single biggest mistake that slowly destroys most men's sex lives and how you can avoid it starting today. This isn't about fantasy. It's about freedom. And it's time you heard the truth. Before we begin, if you haven't already, I invite you to subscribe and turn on notifications. That way you won't miss any of the real, no-nonsense advice I share made specifically for men like you who want to take back control of their health. And if you find this video helpful, just type 1 in the comments. If not, type 0 and let me know how I can improve, because your voice matters here. Now let's get into it. The first secret, and it's one that catches most men off guard, isn't about desire, hormones, or even age. It's about something far more basic and far more often ignored. If your erections have changed, if they've become softer, less reliable, or simply don't last like they used to, it might surprise you to hear that the problem likely isn't in your head. It's in your blood. Let me explain. Sexual secret 1. Erections are about blood, not just desire. I'll never forget the look on Mark's face when he came into my office. 71 years old, former Marine, proud father of 3, still mowed his own lawn, still walked tall, but when he sat down across from me, he looked like a man defeated. "Doc," he said, "I still want her, I just can't get it to work anymore. What's wrong with me?" What I told Mark is what I'm about to tell you now, and I hope you hear me clearly, because this one secret could save your life, not just your sex life. Most men think that when they can't get or maintain an erection, it means they've lost desire. Or worse, they believe it's just age catching up to them. But that's not the truth. The real reason is simpler and far more dangerous. Erections are about blood flow. And when blood stops moving properly, it doesn't just affect your bedroom, it's a warning sign that your heart, your brain, and your entire vascular system could be at risk. Let me say it plainly. Struggling with erections is often the first symptom of cardiovascular disease. Not the second, not the third, the first. Long before chest pain or stroke, your body may whisper to you through weaker erections. Ignore it and the consequences can be fatal. I've had men who waited too long, and by the time they came to see me, the damage had already reached their heart. That's why I say this is not just about sex, it's about survival. And yet most men are never told this. They're handed a little blue pill and sent on their way, never knowing that their arteries are slowly narrowing, that their blood vessels are stiffening, that the very mechanism that once gave them strength and pleasure is now sending up red flags. If Mark had known this 20 years earlier, he could have started walking daily, eating better, quitting cigarettes, getting his blood sugar under control, and maybe, just maybe, avoided the triple bypass that came 3 months later. So hear me now. If your erections have changed, don't be ashamed. But don't be passive either. Your body is speaking, loud and clear. Don't let silence cost you everything. And as eye-opening as this truth might be, it's nothing compared to the second secret. Because while blood controls the body, there's a deeper force that shapes your energy, your emotions, and even your identity as a man. Let's talk about it. If you're still here and this is resonating with you, just drop a number 1 in the comments to let me know you're listening. Your engagement tells me these conversations matter. Now let's keep going with the next powerful truth. Sexual secret 2. Testosterone isn't just about muscles. It's about connection. I once had a patient named Dennis, 68 years old, retired teacher, kind man with a dry wit and a love for woodworking. He came in not because of sexual issues, at least not at first. He came in because, as he put it, I just don't feel like myself anymore. He was tired all the time, short-tempered with his wife, disconnected from his friends. He'd stopped doing the things he loved. His marriage was strained, and he couldn't explain why. He looked me in the eye and said, "I'm not depressed, Doc, but I'm definitely not me." When I tested Dennis's testosterone, the results spoke volumes. His levels were barely above the clinical threshold, low enough to drain his drive, his clarity, and his sense of self. What most men don't realize is that testosterone isn't just about libido or physical strength. It's the foundation of how a man relates to the world. It fuels confidence, motivation, memory, emotional connection, and yes, sexual desire. When it drops, everything else follows, slowly, quietly, and dangerously. This is the part that breaks my heart. Most men never get it checked. They're told it's normal for their age, or worse, they're prescribed antidepressants or sleeping pills to manage symptoms that were hormonal all along. I've seen marriages fall apart, careers fade, and even men's very identities erode. Not because they lacked willpower, but because they were running on empty and never knew it. Dennis told me he thought he had fallen out of love with his wife. But once we got his testosterone levels back to a healthy range through lifestyle changes and medically guided therapy, something changed. He started smiling again. He picked up his tools again. And the way he looked at his wife, that spark came back. Not because of a pill, but because we treated the root, not the symptom. Low testosterone doesn't always scream. It whispers. It steals from you a little at a time until you wake up wondering where your passion went, where your energy went, where you went. And if you don't catch it early, it can take years to reverse. So if you're feeling off, not just physically but emotionally, don't write it off as just aging. It might be your body's quiet cry for help. And while testosterone may govern much of your internal fire, it's the next secret that unlocks how you connect deeply with another human being. How intimacy becomes not just possible but powerful, especially in your later years. Let's go deeper. Sexual secret. 3. Intimacy is a skill, not just a feeling. I still remember a conversation I had with Harold, a 74-year-old man who had been married for over 45 years. He sat quietly in my office, eyes a little glassy, and after a long pause, he said, "Doc, I think my wife and I love each other, but it feels like we've become roommates." There was no anger in his voice, no resentment, just a quiet kind of sadness. And then he asked me a question I've heard far too often. Is that just what happens when you get old? That question haunted me. Because the truth is, no, that's not what has to happen. But it's what does happen when no one ever teaches us the truth. Intimacy, real intimacy, isn't just something that appears out of nowhere. It's a skill. It's something you build like a house, brick by brick. And if you stop building it, it doesn't just stay the same, it slowly crumbles. Most men were never taught this. We were taught to pursue, to conquer, to perform. But not to connect, not to listen, not to be fully present. We were told that sex was about performance, about proving something, about being enough. But as we get older, those measures begin to change, and if we don't evolve with them, we lose the very thing we worked so hard to find: closeness. What Harold was feeling wasn't the absence of love, it was the absence of practice. When intimacy becomes only physical and that physical connection starts to fade or change, many men don't know how to adapt. They withdraw, they get quiet, they stop reaching out, and then one day they realize they're lying next to someone they barely speak to, someone who used to be their everything. Here's what I told Harold. Intimacy is more than touch. It's in the way you hold a conversation, the way you share memories, the way you ask questions without fixing, listen without judgment, and show affection without expecting anything in return. When you stop seeing your partner as someone to impress and start seeing them as someone to understand, intimacy doesn't fade, it deepens. And here's the hardest part. By the time most men figure this out, they've already lost the connection they didn't know how to keep. But the moment you begin to see intimacy as a skill, everything changes. You begin to realize that connection isn't gone, it's waiting to be rebuilt. But there's one more secret left. One that's quietly sabotaging even the strongest men behind closed doors. And chances are it's affecting you right now without you even realizing it. Let's talk about it. If you're still with me and these insights are striking a chord, go ahead and type the number 1 in the comments. It lets me know you're here and that this message is landing where it needs to. Now let's move forward to the 4th and final secret. Sexual secret. 4. Porn is killing your real-world desire. I once had a man, mid-60s, married nearly 4 decades, who sat across from me and said, "I don't understand it. I still watch porn, I still feel aroused, but when it comes to being with my wife, I feel nothing. I love her. I want to be close, but when the moment comes, I'm numb." There was real pain in his voice, not embarrassment, pain, confusion, guilt, and a deep fear that maybe something inside him had broken for good. This is one of the most misunderstood, most ignored, and yet most dangerous truths I've seen in my years working with men. Porn, especially consistent use over time, rewires your brain. It changes what turns you on. What once was an intimate, real-life connection becomes replaced with instant, artificial dopamine spikes. Click after click, your mind becomes trained to respond to fantasy, not reality. What most men don't realize is that porn doesn't just affect your sex life. It affects your ability to feel. It hijacks the part of your brain responsible for bonding, for real connection. And over time, it starts to erode the natural, healthy pathways of desire. Your partner becomes less exciting, less stimulating, not because anything's wrong with them, but because your brain has been trained to crave novelty, control, and detachment. And here's the hard truth. By the time men notice the damage, it's already deeply embedded. It's not just about struggling to perform, it's about not being fully present, about feeling distant even in moments that should bring closeness. I've had men cry in my office admitting they feel more emotionally connected to a screen than to the woman who's loved them for most of their life. That's not just sad, it's devastating. But there's hope. I've seen men break free. It starts with awareness, with stepping back, with giving your mind and body the time to recalibrate, to reconnect with what's real, with what matters. I'm not here to shame you. I'm here to tell you the truth that no one else will say out loud. Porn might feel harmless, but it's costing you more than you know. And for many men, it's quietly killing the one thing they can't afford to lose: real-world connection. And yet, even with all this, low blood flow, hormonal shifts, lost intimacy, porn-induced detachment, there's one final mistake that lies beneath them all. One mistake that silently chips away at a man's confidence, his self-worth, and his ability to recover. Most never notice it until it's too late, but you still have time. Let me show you. Bonus: the one mistake that silently destroys sexual confidence. If I had to choose just one thing, one quiet, creeping habit that I believe robs more men of their sexual confidence than anything else, it's this: suffering in silence. Not the loss of erections, not low testosterone, not relationship breakdowns or even years of unhealthy habits. It's silence. That quiet voice that says, just keep it to yourself. It's probably nothing. Don't talk about it. Be a man. I've seen it ruin more lives than any diagnosis I've ever given. I've had men sit in front of me with tears in their eyes, and they always say some version of the same thing. I thought I was the only one. I was too embarrassed to say anything. I just kept hoping it would get better. But it doesn't get better. It gets worse. Because silence doesn't protect you, it isolates you, and isolation is the enemy of recovery. The moment a man starts to question his masculinity, his performance, or his worth, and he tells no one, something starts to break down inside him. It doesn't happen all at once. It happens in stages, first in his confidence, then in his relationships, and eventually in his identity. I've watched strong, capable, intelligent men shrink from their own lives because they thought they had to fight this alone. And the heartbreaking part is, most of what they were struggling with was treatable, preventable, even reversible. But no one around them ever knew because they never opened their mouth to ask for help. Sexual health isn't just about the physical. It's about self-respect. It's about giving yourself permission to not have all the answers, to talk, to ask questions, to admit when something's not right. That's not weakness, that's courage. I know it feels vulnerable. I know it feels like admitting defeat. But from where I sit, those conversations, the quiet ones, the honest ones, are where healing begins. Because once a man breaks the silence, he's no longer powerless. He has a starting point, a plan, a way forward. And if you've been holding something in, maybe for months, maybe for years, I want you to know it's not too late. You're not broken. You're not done. You just need the right direction, the right truth, and the willingness to take one honest step. And that brings us to where this all leads. Because knowing these secrets is one thing, but what you do with them now, that's where everything changes. Let's bring it all home. Conclusion: you're not done yet. I've spent the better part of 3 decades sitting with men, listening to their regrets, their fears, their frustrations. And if there's one thing I can tell you after all these years, it's this: aging doesn't end your masculinity. Silence does. Shame does. Believing the lie that it's too late does. The truth is, most of what men lose in their later years, vitality, connection, confidence, it's not lost because of age. It's lost because they were never told the right things early enough. And that's what today was about. We started with the cold, sobering fact that your erections are a direct signal of your vascular health, your blood flow. Ignore that signal and it's not just your sex life that suffers, it could be your life. Then we uncovered how testosterone, more than just a hormone, is the very fire behind your motivation, your energy, and your ability to emotionally connect. Low T doesn't just shrink your muscles, it quietly shrinks your sense of self. And we talked about intimacy, not the kind that's about performance or bravado, but the kind that requires intention, vulnerability, and real presence. It's a skill no one teaches us, and one most men only realize they need when the silence between them and their partner becomes too loud to ignore. Then came the hard truth about porn, a modern habit that rewires the brain in subtle but damaging ways. It promises pleasure but often delivers loneliness. It replaces reality with illusion. And before you know it, the person lying next to you feels a million miles away. And finally, we came to the biggest trap of all. The mistake so many men fall into without even knowing: silence. Not asking questions, not seeking help. Believing that struggling in isolation is just what men do. I'm telling you now, it doesn't have to be. If you've made it this far, I want you to hear this from me as someone who's sat across from men just like you for most of my life. You are not done. You're not too old, you're not too broken, and your story isn't finished. What matters now isn't what you didn't know yesterday, it's what you choose to do today. The truth is here, the path is clear. And the rest, well, that's in your hands now.